Hi everybody! We're back onto this book today and we're going to read a story that you might know as a different name. This story is called Little Red Cap. Now, while I'm reminding you that at the end of the story there'll be a shout out to some special person who listens to our stories with us, can you think what Little Red Cap might be? I'll start the story and we'll find out as we go along, and then eventually, if you work out which story this is, you could shout it out at me. Okay. The Little Red Cap. Little Red Cap. Once upon a time, there was a dear girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother. And there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once she gave her a cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else. So she was always called Little Red Cap. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Cap, here's a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She's ill and weak. They will do her good." So she set out before it gets hot, and when you're walking, walk nicely and quietly and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you get to a room, don't forget to say, "Good morning," and don't peep into every corner before you do it. Oh, she must be a bit nosy, maybe, I don't know. "I will take great care," said Little Red Cap to her mother, and gave her hand on it. Oh, so she shook hands. She promised. The grandmother lived out in the wood, half a league from the village, and just as Little Red Cap entered the wood, a wolf met her. Red Cap did not know what a wicked creature he was, and was not at all afraid of him. "Good day, Little Red Cap," he said. "Thank you kindly, Wolf." "Where do you go so early, Little Red Cap?" To my grandmother's." "What have you got in your apron?" "Cake and wine. Yesterday was baking day, so poor sick grandmother is to have some good to make her stronger." "Where does your grandmother live, Little Red Cap?" "A good quarter of a league farther into the wood. A house stands under the large oak trees. Nut trees are just below. You surely must know it," replied Little Red Cap. I've got a feeling Little Red Cap is sharing far too much information with a stranger in a forest. The wolf thought to himself, "What a tender young creature! What a nice plump mouthful! She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily so as to catch them both." Told you. So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Cap, and then he said, "See, Little Red Cap, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look round? I believe, too, that you do not hear how sweetly the birds are singing. You walk gravely along as if you were going to school, while everything else out here in the wood is merry." Little Red Cap raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees and the pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, "Suppose I take grandmother a fresh nosegay or some fresh flowers. That would please her too. It's so early in the day that I shall still get there in good time." So she ran away from the path into the wood to look for flowers. Oh dear, her mum had said she hadn't got to do that, didn't she? And whenever she picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one further on and ran after it, and so she got deeper and deeper into the woods. So she's now well off the path and she's picking flowers, and her mum said, "Don't pick any flowers, just stay on the path." Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to grandmother's house and knocked at the door. Because if you remember, Little Red Cap had told him exactly where grandmother lives. "Who is there?" "Little Red Cap," replied the wolf. "She's bringing cake and wine. Open the door." "Lift the latch," called out the grandmother. "I'm too weak and cannot get up." The wolf tilted the latch. The door flew open, and without saying a word, he went straight into the grandmother's bed and devoured her. He ate her up. Then he put her clothes on, dressed himself in her cap, laid in bed, and drew the curtains. Little Redcap, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she gathered so many that she could carry no more, you remember that grandmother, she had to go to grandmother's and she set out on her way. She was surprised to find that the cottage door was standing open when she went into the room. She had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today. And at other times I like being with grandmother so much." She called out, "Good morning," but received no answer. So she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay her grandmother, with her cap pulled far over her face and looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have." "All the better to hear you with, my child," was the reply. "But grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you with, my dear." "But grandmother, what large hands you have." "The better to hug you with." "Oh, but grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have." "The better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this that with one bound he was out of the bed and he swallowed up Redcap. When the wolf had appeased his appetite, he lay down again on the bed and fell asleep, and he began to snore very loudly. The hunter was just passing the house and thought to himself, "How the old woman is snoring. I must see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find you here, you old sinner?" he said. "I've long sought you." They'd been looking for him. Then, just as he was going to fire at him, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother and that she might still be saved. So he did not fire, but he took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. When he'd made 2 snips, he saw that the little red cat was shining. And then he made 2 snips more, and the little girl sprang out crying, "Oh, how frightened I've been, how dark it was inside the wolf." And after that the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Redcap, however, quickly fetched some great stones with which they filled the wolf's body, and when he woke he wanted to run away. The stones were so heavy that he fell down at once and fell dead. So they put stones into the wolf's stomach and got the grandmother and the little girl out of it. All of the 3 of them were delighted. The hunter drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it, and the grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine, which Redcap had brought, and revived. But Redcap thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path and run into the wood when my mother has forbidden me to do so." Well, she should have done that in the first place. She should have listened, I think. Right, it's also related that once when Redcap was again taking cakes to the old grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and tried to entice her from the path. Redcap, however, was on her guard and went straight forward on her way and told her grandmother that she had met a wolf and that he had said good morning to her, but with such a wicked look in his eyes that if they had not been on the public road, he would have certainly eaten her up. "Well," said the grandmother, "we will shut the door that he may not come in." Soon afterwards the wolf knocked and cried, "Open the door, grandmother. I am little Redcap and I am fetching you some cakes." But they did not speak or open the door, so the grey-beard stole twice or thrice round the house and at last jumped on the roof, intending to wait until Redcap went home in the evening and to steal after her and devour her in the darkness. But the grandmother saw what was in his thoughts. In front of the house was a great stone trough. So she said to the child, "Take the pail, Redcap. I made some sausages yesterday, so carry the water in which I boiled them to the trough." Redcap carried until the great trough was quite full. Then the smell of sausages reached the wolf, and he sniffed and peeped down, and at last stretched out his neck so far that he could no longer keep his footing and began to slip, and he slipped down from the roof straight into the great trough and drowned. But Redcap went home joyously, and never did anything to harm anyone. So even though they'd had one wolf, they got another one, but the second time they knew what to do. There you go. That story reminds me of a story called Little Red Riding Hood, not Little Red Cap. So if you realised that and shouted it out, then that was super duper and you're really clever. That means you know your stories. Anyway, today's shout out I'm going to do for a little girl called Violet. Violet likes stories. I think her favourite is pink, favourite colour, but she'd look really cool in a little red cap as well. So perhaps we should crochet her one. Who knows? Or maybe she could put one on her Barbies. Anyway, whatever. It's been lovely telling you these stories today, and I'll see you again soon.